The Love, Life, and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, Advanced Certified Weight and Life Coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Happy New Year. Welcome to episode 68. Today, we're going to talk about the power of reflection. I'm going to take you through how to reflect back on your weight journey from 2024 without self criticism. And we're going to do a data driven review instead. Why is this important? Well, without data and a critical analysis, meaning not judgmental, but one in which you analyze the numbers and you analyze the data, the facts about how your year went, where you have progress, and noticing what still needs work. This allows you to set individualized, targeted, focused goals that really force you to work on the things that still need optimization, and allows you to also see yourself as having made progress on the parts of your weight journey that you have made progress on. And this is the part of a review, a critical review without judgment, if you will, that so many of us miss out on. What this does is it actually takes us out of that terrible way that our brain wants to just do a quick snap judgment as to whether or not you've been successful for 2024. I think this is why goal setting gets such a terrible rap, because we're not taught how to do a data driven review and a critical assessment of the data rather than critically assessing ourselves. We are only just ever trying to learn new habits and practicing new habits in our actions and our thinking. And this is always on a continuum of progression. And this is really one of the greatest joys of life, is seeing how you've gotten better with certain things and then targeting and identifying the parts that you still need to target on. And when you can identify the parts that are holding you back in your weight journey, that's when the whole world opens up to you, because you can really focus your time, your attention, and targeted energy on those specific parts of your journey that really still need leveling up and that you haven't quite figured out the answers for. So today this is a working podcast. So if you're in the car or you're on a run or a walk, feel free to just listen first. But the benefit for this podcast is going to be you sitting down with a pen, a paper. You're going to need all your scale data from the year that's just gone by. This podcast comes out on the 31st. So you really should have most all of your data for the entire year. You're going to need your journal if you've been journaling, hopefully periodically, at least throughout the year. And you're going to need some paper if you're a pen and paper person, or like a note taking app so you can make some notes. We are not setting goals today. I'm taking you through the essential part before you can make real effective goals for yourself. So this is the foundation before we create targeted goals. I'm going to be running a special call for those of you who want to join me in the new year to take this work that we do today and apply it by using goal setting, targeted goal setting for you for 2025. If you want to be part of that call, I need you to join my email list so you can get all the details. You can do that by going over to Instagram and just comment with 2025 on any of my posts, and I'll DM you the link to get all the information about the call. And I hope that you join me. It'll be a lot of fun. All right, so let's get started with today. Why reflection matters. And many people don't like to look back, but just stay with me on this. This is usually because when I say to a new client, for example, why are you here? What do you want to work together to achieve with me? A lot of times what my clients say is, well, I'm the same weight now as I have been the past 3 years, and I've been trying to lose weight the whole time. And this is usually what we do. We remember or recall what we weighed a year ago, and we compare that with the number we are today. And based on the difference between those two numbers, we make broad, sweeping conclusions about our success or failure in our weight journey. This is such a myopic way and a very short sighted way of looking at the numbers to figure out what's going on here and why you're not finding the success that you're looking for. It's kind of like getting on the scale. When you get on the scale, just notice it spits out a number. And the number that it gives you today compared to the number it gave you 1 year ago might be the same. But a simple scale, not a smart scale, a simple scale that only measures your relationship to gravity at any one point of time tells you nothing about the differences in the composition of your body, what you're made up of, how much water, how much fat, how much muscle, how much bone, and the changes that might have happened between those two dates. And taking these numbers in your review of the year is much the same, right? It's fraught with the same shortcomings. The number can't tell you what aspect of the lived experience you had in 2024 that affected your ability to, I assume most of you are trying to lose weight, to consistently lose week after week, because we know weeks aren't all the same, right? Even weekdays are different than weekends. There are nuances in what the numbers say. So we're going to dig into this today. And I'm really excited for you to do this if you've never done this before. So we need to have the numbers first in order to do the analysis. So, what we're also going to do when we look at the numbers is we're going to give ourselves permission to be judgment free. What your brain is going to want to say and give you feedback for the numbers at first response, automatic response, is very rarely the truth, the data driven truth about the numbers. So just hold off on your automatic judgments and work with me step by step through this, where you're going to be pausing the podcast and then restarting it when you're ready. Okay. I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to like pause for the minutes that it takes you to compile your data or do your analysis. You're going to need to pause the podcast and then come back as needed. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is take out your note taking app or your piece of paper, and you're going to write down January and all the months of the year, all the way through December 2024. If you have data and you want to go back a year and a half, you can go ahead and do that too. If you feel like you really want insight to the last year and a half. I don't think it's really necessary to go back any further than that, but some of you like to take a deep dive, and that's fine. So 12 or 18 months is fine. So put that down on your paper, and then I want you to go through your scale app or whatever you use to track your weight. And we're just going to, at first pass, and this will be plenty sufficient for most of you, the beginning of the month weight. Like, so if you go through, let's say you have like January 3rd, and then you have February 2nd, and then you have March 4th, that's all fine. Just the date and the weight that's closest to the beginning of each month that you can find from your data. And go ahead and list those down for each month of 2024. You can go ahead and pause the podcast while you compile all of that data. All right, so you've got all your data of your weights at the beginning of the months for the last 12 to 18 months. And then I'm going to have you ask what was happening in that month prior to that date that influenced the number that I wound up at the beginning of the next month. So, for example, January's number, your weigh in for January of 2024, was influenced by what happened in December of 2023. Maybe you traveled, maybe you went to Europe, maybe you were taking care of a sick family member. All of these things would have an impact. So just write a little blurb. And I don't want you to just go by memory. I want you to actually flip back in your plans, your Google Calendar, your journals to figure out what was influencing your weight goal in your actual life in the month prior to that weigh in. You can go ahead and compile all that data and then pause the podcast while you do that and then come back. All right. So you've got your weigh in dates and you have some notes on each month about what was happening that could have affected those numbers. And now it's time to analyze. And I want you to really critically look at what are the numbers telling you. You're probably seeing a series of months where the weight went down, and then maybe some months where the weight went back up. And I want you to ask good questions, analytical questions that would help you understand the nuances about why that would happen. Questions like, why would this number make sense for this month? If it's a number that reflects a decline and you're trying to lose weight, where you're kind of meeting your goals, ask yourself, what did I figure out during this month? If it's the opposite and you had a gain or you're not reaching your goals that month, ask yourself, what exactly had I not figured out in this month? Again, do this and avoiding judgment and viewing the data as clues to help you discover what you really want to hone in on for 2025, especially in those parts, obviously, where the weight isn't going in the direction that you want it to go in. You can pause while you do this analysis and come back. Okay, so hopefully you're back. You have some analysis, you have some good data, and you have some insights as to where you are at with your weight loss. For most of my clients, I would say it appears that at certain times of at least 2024, there were times when you were more successful than maybe others. And hopefully you've been be able to identify clues as to the circumstances that challenge you to stay focused with habits that allow you to lose weight within those circumstances. So let me give you an example of how I discovered this with one of my clients. So she hired me to help her, and she was saying, I've been at this for a year and a half. I had initially lost a nice chunk of weight, but over the past year and a half, I have just been gaining and I am working so hard. No one keeps better data than me. I plan all the time. I mean, I'm really on everything. And she was like at her wit's end. So we did this data keeping reflection. And here's what we discovered. My client was actually pretty good and consistent at weight loss. It wasn't a lot in any one month, but we could see that there were definitely a series of months throughout the year where she was pretty consistent doing the things that she needed to do to lose weight. But here's what we also discovered. She's a regular vacation taker. And on these vacations, she would gain more weight than in the weeks she was able to lose in between her vacations. And this was really due to just a family culture. She would go on vacation with her family most often. And with her family, they had this culture of overeating and over drinking. And it just happened that she felt like she couldn't continue to lose weight on those vacations. It felt too hard. And so you could see the net effect of these vacations was actually putting her into a net gain situation. And so the conclusion, the snap conclusion that she was making with before she had done this exercise was, I'm not being successful. But the truth is, she was being successful. She was just letting it all go on vacations, not keeping any of her habits on vacations to arrest the gains she was having so that she wasn't wiping out all of her progress. So that's what we worked on together. She didn't need any more help on the typical weeks where she was working and at home. Like she was great at that. But what she really needed to focus in on was detailed plans for how to stop gaining at the rate she was gaining on her vacations. So the first 2 vacations of the year, we worked on minimizing the gains. So it went from like over 10 pounds of gain down to like 8 and then 6 pounds. That was a big improvement. We cut that in half, the gain in half by the time we were done with that. Then on the 3rd vacation, she was getting a lot better at this. And she actually was just over like a maintain by her 3rd vacation. And meanwhile, in between these vacations, she's still losing. Okay. So her net by the time we got to quarter 3 of that year that we worked together was very close to maintaining. And then in quarter 4, she took her final vacation and she lost weight. And that's when the progress from the whole year was able to stay maintained even through that final vacation where she lost weight, and she ended up the year with a net loss. Um, you know, this may not sound dramatic or amazing. It might feel like, oh my God, she had to work a whole nother year on this. But yeah, we slowly changed because I didn't want her thinking like vacations couldn't be fun, that she couldn't kind of let loose a little bit, or that she had to like restrict or feel deprived during her vacation. And because we changed the habits slowly, she was also able to create a culture with her family where she slowly started telling them, I'm not going to be eating all of these meals. I'll meet you for the ones that I'm actually hungry for. And she did it in a way that was sustainable. So this is one way that I can illustrate for you how to really focus on the things that matter for 2025. Okay? So the circumstantial influences throughout your year that happen, both foreseen, some of these we know are going to happen, plans, vacations, trips, things like that, graduations, cruises, all of these things. And then some things happen that without any warning. Maybe you get sick, maybe you get COVID, maybe you hurt yourself, maybe you break your ankle. These things will heavily impact what you're able to do, and it's going to require you to be adept in the moment and figure out how you can not let your whole weight loss goal go, but minimize the impact of circumstances, both planned for and unplanned for, so that you can stay with your goal and keep the results that you've been able to create without letting it all go. All right. So you have your list, you have your insights that you've learned. I want to give you another example because this could be happening for you where it won't be obvious what's going on with you with your numbers and your list of circumstances. So this was another client that I worked with, and what happened was, she was insisting that she wasn't being successful. And I knew that she was being successful because I work with her every week, and I know that she had been losing weight from week to week to week. But what wasn't clear to me was that it was the 4th week of every month that she would have a gain. And this gain was big enough that, again, it was wiping out what she was able to do during weeks 1 through 3 of typical months. And that allowed us to see. So for her, listing the numbers at the beginning of every month would be, within a few pounds of each other, really not going up and not really going down. Right. But she's working, actively working at weight loss. She felt like each and every week. So we had to take a real close look at what was happening during week 4. And here's what we found out. She was overworking the system of how to lose weight without restriction. She was still making restrictive plans with virtuous foods, right? Telling herself she couldn't have certain foods, especially at the beginning of the month, right? Because the month prior, she ended it in a way that didn't feel good. So her reaction was to kind of clamp down. Now, I work with all kinds of clients with all kinds of different food plans, and everybody is able to eat how they prefer to eat. That's the assumption. And so I wasn't really noticing that. How could I know that the food she was planning wasn't really the food she wanted to eat? In fact, even when she was planning those virtuous foods, she was telling herself she had to eat the vegetables first when she didn't really want to. So all of this stuff was making, yeah, she was losing weight weeks 1 through 3 doing this, but it was feeling exhausting to her. And by the time she got to week 4, she already felt like she had been white knuckling the process all month. She just wanted to plan a cookie and, foods that she felt like she wasn't giving herself permission to plan. And then there was this other thing coming in, which was deadlines with her with work. And this propensity to kind of people please her boss and overwork to provide reports and such at the end of the month. And what was happening was those were urgent and important. So, and she was prioritizing them so much that they were taking up her entire work week on week 4. So all of her self-care went out the window. She wasn't getting enough sleep. She was feeling a lot of anxiety and perfectionistic all or nothing thinking about overperforming at work. And then she was letting her planning and her following her hunger and enough cues completely go by week 4. And what was happening is she was finding relief through binging. And she was a little afraid to let me know that that was happening. And, this is something that binging or overeating with a feeling of being out of control is a way for a human being to find safety. And oftentimes, this is just safety from a lot of really hard thinking and driving ourselves with a lot of shoulding and have tos and need tos and self judgment for disappointing when we feel like we fell off the wagon, that type of mentality. So you can see for this client, this was her overworking the system with more like all or nothing thinking and being unable to sustain that, which is normal. And so we needed to make weeks 1 through 3 easier. We needed her to be planning more of those more indulgent foods and having them with hunger and stopping at enough. Not always eating the vegetables first if she really didn't want to. And this creates ease in your relationship to food. And then we also worked on her relationships at work, her tendency to people please. And we were able to kind of help her decrease the binging at the end of the month so that she could finish the month with a net loss. So, again, I tell you these stories because the true story about your weight loss is much more nuanced than your reflective, reactive brain wants to tell you how you're doing with your journey. This is not take one number, subtract the other one a year later. That's the foregone conclusion about where you're at with your weight loss journey. If you have been working on the principles that I have been talking about all year, or even for the last 2 years on the podcast, you have made progress in your journey. And it's really important for you. And this is the third part of your assignment. I want you to write down in all the months where you see positive progression in your journey, numbers that show that you're making progress. I don't care how small they are. I want you to acknowledge that these parts are working. And I want you to do it for every month that you see it. So you could say like, hey, in July and August, when I go and visit my parents or we're at the lake house or whatever. I do a really good job. I know that like my eating really kind of snaps into place when I'm with my family. It just feels easier. It's like you write that down and you just know, hey, like summer season is like dial it in. It's over here during the springtime when this happens, or when I get sick, right? When I get my sinus infections, there's allergy season in the spring, that's really hard for me. I need to figure out what a good sick protocol is and how to really take better care of myself when I'm sick, rather than thinking like overeating helps this. Okay. So hopefully, and you can go ahead again and pause this while you come up with those points of progress of pride in your journey, right alongside the points where we know that we've got to work on for 2025. Okay. So you're looking for any recurring patterns and trends, and we're recognizing both wins and challenges. Okay. So the next part is to go from this kind of reflection to action. And this is where we're going to turn it into a framework for 2025. I want you to set personalized, realistic goals based on these patterns and where you're at with your weight loss. I want to mention this too. In the months where you saw progress toward your goals, I want you to go into your weekly plans during those weeks where things were working well. And I want you to pull out that blueprint about how many overeats did you have in that week that helped you to get that progress. What percentage full were you eating to? Based on your recollection, look in your journaling, look on like for clues for how you were feeling, what you were doing, what was your movement like? What was your outlook like? And that's like a great blueprint for you to try to repeat as often as possible where it makes sense for 2025. And we're going to do all of this on the special call I have coming up for making goals, data driven goals based on this reflection for 2025. So, again, to join the call, I believe it's coming up in January, beginning of January. Just go over to Instagram. You can find me at Thrive in Midlife. And in any post on my Instagram, comment 2025, and I'll DM you the link for how to join the call. Okay. It's so important for you to do self compassionate reflection and self compassionate goal setting because, I did some work I took a class with Christine Neff, who has done a lot of research on the importance of self compassion. And we're the only species that can create a stress response based on how we are thinking about our own performance, about our progress. And if we are using a harsh, critical inner voice to try to like get us to conform using harsh measures, right? Harsh talk, you're going to set yourself up for a stress response by the way you're talking to yourself. And that's like going to a fight with one hand tied behind your back. Like you have very little chance of being successful. I really want you to turn the leaf over for 2025 if you're not already doing this by just really saying judgment stops me in my path, right? It's like deer in the headlights. You're not going to get anywhere. So use the numbers, use the data, and use self compassionate talk to set you up for success for 2025. So I'll see you hopefully in the new year. Your homework is, of course, to do this work, write down your weight for each month, identify the circumstances and patterns with self compassion, identify areas in which you are noticing good progress and specific instances that you want to work on for 2025 to optimize your results moving forward. Okay. Happy New Year. Thank you for hanging out with me in 2024. It's been such an honor to have you listening and following my work. I really, really appreciate you. I wish you all the best. I'm celebrating you tonight for the new year and thinking about you all the time. I hope that you can join my email list and we will be on the call together in the new year. Okay, stay focused and so long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe and get on the list. You'll get a free gift, periodic coaching, plus advance notice of in-person events and workshops.